Hey VAT, welcome back. Today we're enhancing some photographs using Photoshop. We were able to take some photographs the other day using natural lighting, the rule of thirds, filling the frame, framing the subject, ordinary things and new angles, and the elements and principles of design. We're going to take our favorite work from that and we're going to edit that one photograph in 5 different ways. So we're going to end up with 5 photographs, sort of like this. So here's the original photograph. Here's the black and white version, high contrast, low contrast, enhanced color, and then extremely cropped. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. We're going to open up Adobe Photoshop. We're first going to go to File, Open, to open up a photograph that we took the other day. I'm going to open up Batman. With Batman, I want to show you that we already know how to go to Image Adjustments. Of course, Image Adjustments will let you do certain things to your photo, like, for example, we did a black and white version, and we can make that black and white this way and say OK. However, there's a different way of doing this, and more probably of a professional practice is to, I'm going to go backwards, edit, undo. More professional way of doing things is to use these adjustments on the layer. So here there's a little circle that's half black, half white, and it's called Create a New Fill or Adjustment Layer. And adjustment layers are what we're using instead of going to Image Adjustment. They do the same things, however, if I go to that black and white option, you'll see what it does is that it puts the black and white option on its own independent layer. And you can edit the colors and how they turn to grayscale just like you can if you went to Image Adjustment. However, when you're done, you have left here, you have this layer that you can toggle like on and off because it's separate. It's just kind of like a filter that's on the top of your photo. You can see it with and without, with and without. And then when I have that turned on, the image is black and white. So it doesn't actually change the original image at all. It's just kind of putting a filter on top of it. The benefits of that are multiple. You can, one, change the opacity of that layer, and you can sort of start to get your color back a little bit. So your color is muted, not completely black and white. You can also do things like this is a layer mask right here, and you can use a brush to erase certain areas of that. So the brush, being black brush, will take away certain areas of the black and white, whereas white would then bring that back. So at any time when using these adjustment layers, you can always click on this little white box here, and you can use black and white paint brushes to take away and bring back the effect of that layer. And then ultimately you can take that away completely by toggling the eyeball, or if you didn't like what happened, you can just take it and throw it in the garbage. Right? That again is found here in the image, the adjustments. You can also find the same stuff if you have in your dock. The adjustment options here would have in it, like this is kind of like a shortcut that you can have out and readily available to click on. So the black and white option is in here. There it is, black and white. So click that, it does the same exact thing. It puts that on there like that, and I can adjust the colors as I showed you before. Once you have the image how you want it, you can go ahead and hit File, Save As, and I recommend saving this as a Photoshop document so that it preserves your layers, but for your portfolio you're going to need JPEGs. So if I save this as a JPEG, it's going to save it the way it looks in the preview window. So this is going to be Batman black and white. Black and white, and I can go ahead and save that. Maximum quality, of course, until we can't. So that's that option. If I take that layer away for a second and then say I need an option, one of the other options is like a color enhancement. So if I was to go to in here, there's a hue saturation button, or ultimately too, the same thing can be said about in the bottom of your layers palette. You have the option to go in here and say, here it is again, hue saturation. And what that does is, again, it adds that layer to your image. This one, instead of saying black and white, says hue saturation. And the hue saturation can be adjusted. The hue can be adjusted to whatever color you want. The saturation can be adjusted, so the saturation of your image can go up. Lightness and darkness can be controlled. And then ultimately, if you adjusted this quite a bit, and then wanted to only have that take place in part of your image, you could click on the layers, the layer mask, and you could use a paintbrush that is black to take away, or white to bring back. So using brushes that are medium size, using brushes that are soft, and using brushes that are lower in opacity can start to get you to where you're editing specific areas. Black, of course. Oops. You can start to edit away a little bit of that. While some of the colors are boosted, some of the image doesn't have to have that boost, so you can kind of start to take it out a little bit. I would probably work this way for all of the different changes that we need to make. So I'd save this now as a JPEG. Save by going to File, Save As, and then going to JPEG. It's going to save the way it looks on the screen, and then I could just toggle the eyeball off of that and continue to do some other types of things. So this is going to be Batman color boost. Okay, and I can take that away. And the next thing, I have original photo, black and white. High contrast and low contrast are something that we need to work on still. So high contrast, low contrast. Here we go. Inside of the layer adjustments, you have the ability to change the levels, the curves, or the exposure. All of those, including brightness, contrast, obviously, all those have to do with the adjustment of contrast in your image. So I like to use levels a lot. So when using levels, I can move the black slidey bar to increase the darks of my photos, and then I can use the white slidey, the little toggle switch to move to the left, and that brings out some of the highlights of my image. So I can end up with a high contrast image, and I can file save that as my high contrast image. And then, lastly, I'll just take this eyeball away, and then lastly I'll do the low contrast one. I'll try something different for you guys, just to switch it up. I'll go to, instead of levels, I can go to exposure. And if I just move the gamma corrections, it usually washes out photos pretty quickly and easily. Okay, and so there you have it. So I'm going to file save as, save this as a JPEG, and I think I'm just about done. So the idea is to continue to experiment and play around with these image adjustment, layer adjustments, and then to be able to adjust those, fine-tune those in your photos to adjust them exactly how you want them to be. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this goes well for you. I'll see you in class.